June Park stared out the shuttle window as the planet Helios grew larger. The blue-green world with its 3 moons looked beautiful, but June's stomach was in knots. First human exchange student at the Galactic Academy, he muttered to himself. No pressure. The shuttle pilot, a tall alien with blue skin, turned and clicked something in a language June didn't understand. The translation device on June's wrist beeped. First time to Helios? The device translated. Yes, June replied. First time leaving Earth, actually. The pilot made a sound like laughter. Humans don't travel much. You'll be quite the curiosity. That was exactly what June feared. At 22 years old, he had been the top student at Seoul National University. But here, he would be the primitive human among species that had traveled the stars for thousands of years. The shuttle dipped lower, passing through clouds that glowed with purples and pinks. Below, June could see a city of gleaming towers and floating platforms. At the center stood a massive structure shaped like a spiral, reaching toward the sky. The Academy, the pilot said, pointing. Home to the brightest minds in 12 galaxies. The shuttle landed on a platform extending from the middle of the spiral. June grabbed his single bag. Earth had only joined the Galactic Union 3 years ago. The galaxy still saw humans as newcomers, barely out of their planetary cradle. As June stepped out, the air felt strange, thicker than Earth's but somehow easier to breathe. The gravity was slightly lighter, making him feel bouncy with each step. A tall woman with copper-colored skin and striking silver eyes waited at the platform's edge. She wore a simple blue uniform with 3 silver stars on the collar. Park June. Of Earth? She asked, her voice musical. Yes. I mean, on Earth we say the family name last, so June Park. I am Administrator Lana, she said. Welcome to the Galactic Academy. We have 24,000 students from 3,217 species here, and now 1 human. She smiled, but June couldn't tell if she was being friendly or mocking him. She led him through hallways made of a material that looked like glass but felt warm like wood. Students of all shapes and sizes moved around them. Some had too many limbs to count. Others floated rather than walked. A group of students with bright red fur stopped and stared openly at June. Is that the human? One whispered loudly. June kept his eyes forward, trying to look confident. Administrator Lana brought him to a round door. Your assigned living space. Your personal code has been sent to your device. Professor Kang will meet you in 1 hour to take you to your first class. Professor Kang? June asked, surprised to hear a Korean name. Yes. He requested you specifically for this program. He was born on Earth but has been with the Academy for 15 years. With that, she turned and left. June's room was small but comfortable, with a bed that adjusted to his body shape, a desk that responded to his thoughts, and a window showing a view of the city. He barely had time to wash his face and change clothes before his door chimed. Standing outside was a man who looked Korean, around 50 years old with kind eyes and gray streaks in his black hair. June Park, the man said in Korean, bowing slightly. I'm Professor Kang Tae-woo. It's good to finally meet you. June bowed deeper. Professor, thank you for selecting me. Professor Kang switched to English. We should speak Union Standard around others. Your translator will help. Are you ready for your first class? As they walked through the spiraling corridors, Professor Kang explained his role. I teach comparative civilizations. I study how different species develop and interact. Humans are fascinating to me. Why? June asked. Because you're unpredictable. Most species follow logical patterns as they evolve. Humans jump around. You created poetry before proper sanitation. You went to your moon before curing common diseases. You're chaotic, which makes you interesting. They entered a large circular room. About 20 students sat at desks that hovered slightly above the floor. All eyes turned to June. Class, this is June Park from Earth. Our first human exchange student, Professor Kang announced. June, please take the empty desk near Doya. June moved toward the only empty desk. Beside it sat a female alien with skin so clear he could see the outline of her organs. She had large eyes that blinked sideways. Hello, she said as he sat down. I'm Doya. I've been studying humans. Your species is fascinating. Thanks, I think, June replied. From across the room, a large student with green scales and muscles that looked hard as rock stared at June. His eyes were yellow with vertical slits. That's Tal, Doya whispered. He's Vraxian. They think they're better than everyone, especially species new to space. Professor Kang began the lesson, showing holographic images of different planets. Today we discuss how environment shapes civilization. June, on Earth, how did your varied climates affect human development? June froze. All eyes were on him. His mind raced through his history classes. Well, he began slowly, Earth has many different environments. People in cold places built different homes and ate different foods than people in hot places. This led to different cultures. Tal made a huffing sound. Primitive. On developed worlds, we control our environments, not the other way around. Professor Kang nodded. An interesting perspective, Tal. But consider this. Species that adapt to their environments rather than controlling them often develop unique strengths. Flexibility can be more valuable than force. After class, June struggled to operate the food dispenser in the dining hall. The machine kept giving him blue cubes that smelled like gasoline. You're selecting Malubian protein. Not safe for humans, Doya said, appearing beside him. She tapped a different pattern. Try this. The machine produced something that looked like rice with vegetables. Thank you, June said. May I sit with you? I have questions about Earth. As they ate, Doya asked about everything from human music to why humans kept pets. June found himself relaxing for the first time since arriving. Suddenly, a shadow fell. Over their table. Tal loomed over them, two equally large Vraxians behind him. The professor favored you today, human, Tal said. Don't get comfortable. Some think bringing primitive species into the academy lowers our standards. I earned my place here, June said quietly. Did you? Or are you a political token because the Union wants Earth's resources? Tal leaned closer. Your species still fights each other over land and imaginary borders. Your children playing with tools you don't understand. Doya stood up. That's enough, Tal. Tal smirked. Defending the human, Doya? How sweet. He walked away with his friends. Ignore him, Doya said. Vraxians are all muscle, no brain. Later that night, June sat at his desk, looking at the strange homework. He needed to analyze 5 different alien cultural practices and compare them to Earth's. The holographic display showed symbols he didn't understand, and his translator kept giving him words that made no sense. There was a knock at his door. Professor Kang stood there with a small device. Having trouble? He asked. Everything is so different, June admitted. It will get easier. Professor Kang handed him the device. This contains Earth reference materials and something else. Earth is newer to space than the others, but that gives you advantages they don't see. What advantages? June asked. You haven't had technology solve all your problems for thousands of years. You still know how to think without computers, how to adapt quickly. Professor Kang smiled. Many advanced species have engineered those traits out of themselves. They've forgotten how to be flexible. After the professor left, June looked out his window at the 3 moons of Helios. He was far from home, surrounded by creatures who saw humans as primitive, but maybe, just maybe, being different wasn't such a bad thing after all. 3 weeks had passed since June's arrival at the Galactic Academy. The strange was slowly becoming familiar. He no longer got lost in the spiraling hallways. The food from the dispensers no longer made his stomach hurt, and he had even made a few friends. June sat in Professor Kang's classroom, listening to a lecture about how different species handled conflict. The holographic display showed images of various alien peace treaties and war machines. The Artaxians, Professor Kang said, pointing to an image of beings that looked like Doya, believe in solving all conflicts through shared mind linking. They haven't had a war in 3,000 years. Doya, sitting next to June, straightened proudly. Meanwhile, the Vraxian Empire has expanded through strength and superior tactics, Professor Kang continued. showing images of massive warships. They believe peace comes through power. Tal, the Vraxian student, nodded with obvious pride. He glanced at June with his yellow slitted eyes. And humans? Professor Kang asked, turning to June. How does Earth handle conflict? All eyes turned to June. 3 weeks ago, this would have made him shrink in his seat. Now he sat straighter. We're still learning, June said. For most of our history, we fought each other, nation against nation. Now we're trying to work together. We joined the Galactic Union because we want peace. Tal made a sound like rocks grinding together, a Vraxian laugh. Humans want protection, not peace. Your weapons are toys compared to ours. Before June could answer, the classroom door slid open. Administrator Lana entered, her face serious. Professor Kang, a moment, please, she said. The professor stepped outside. The students could see them talking through the transparent door. Professor Kang's face grew dark with concern. When he returned, he seemed distracted. Let's continue with the topic of defensive technologies. After class, June and Doya walked together toward the food hall. Did you notice Professor Kang seems worried? Doya asked. Yes, June said. Something's wrong. Doya lowered her voice. There are rumors. The Vraxian Empire and the Galactic Union are having problems. Some say war is coming. June stopped walking. War? Between the Vraxians and the Union? It's just rumors, Doya said quickly. But Vraxians have been acting strange lately. Have you noticed how Tal and his friends always talk in private now? They used to be loud about everything. In the food hall, the screens that usually showed science programs or music were now showing news. Reports about Vraxian ships moving near Union borders, diplomats making angry speeches. June got his food, something like noodles with red sauce, and sat with Doya and 2 other students. Mick, a 4-armed being with purple skin, and Tazo, who looked like a walking plant. Did you finish the historical analysis project? Meek asked June. Almost, June replied. I'm writing about how Earth's ancient wars shaped our technology. Tal appeared beside their table with his food tray. Usually he sat with other Vraxians, but today he put his tray down next to June. Mind if I join you? He asked, not waiting for an answer before sitting. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. I hear you're doing well in your classes, human, Tal said, his voice smooth but cold. Professor Kang seems impressed with your creative thinking. Thank you, June said carefully. You beat me on the last test, Tal continued. The question about how a less advanced civilization might defend against a technologically superior one. Your answer was unexpected. June had written about Earth's history, when smaller nations had used their knowledge of local terrain and unconventional tactics to fight off stronger invaders. Sometimes the most advanced solution isn't the best one, June said. Tal's yellow eyes narrowed. A primitive viewpoint. True advancement means victory is guaranteed before battle begins. Unless you don't understand what you're fighting, June, replied. Tal's scales darkened, a sign of anger in Vraxians. He stood up abruptly. Primitive species should know their place in the galaxy, he said, then walked away. That was strange, Mick said. Vraxians never talk to other species unless they have to. Later that day, June went to Professor Kang's office for his weekly check-in. The professor was watching the news on his screen but turned it off when June entered. How are you adjusting, June? Professor Kang asked. Better, June said. But I'm hearing things about possible war between the Vraxians and the Union. Professor Kang sighed deeply. There are tensions. The Vraxian Empire wants more control in the outer sectors. The Union refuses to give it. Both sides are moving ships, but it's probably just politics. Tal has been acting strange, June said. He sat with us today asking about my test answers. Professor Kang looked concerned. Be careful around him. Vraxians are raised to think of other species as either useful tools or potential threats. Professor, why did you choose me for this program? June asked suddenly. There were better students at my university. Professor Kang smiled. Not better. Different. You see, most species here have been part of galactic society for thousands of years. They've developed in similar ways. Humans are new. You think differently. Tal says that makes us primitive. No, it makes you valuable. You have something many advanced species have lost: adaptability, the ability to think in new ways when facing new problems. Professor Kang leaned forward. I chose you because your application showed creative problem solving. You found solutions, and that no algorithm would suggest. The next day, June's class was deep in debate. The topic: is technological superiority the most important factor in conflict resolution? Tal argued forcefully that superior technology always wins. History proves this. Advanced civilizations always defeat less advanced ones. When it was June's turn to speak, he stood slowly. Technology is just a tool. What matters is how you use it. Earth's history shows many times when people with simple weapons defeated armies with advanced ones, because they understood the environment better, or were more determined to win. Determination? Tal scoffed. What good is determination against a warship that can destroy a city from orbit? Even the most powerful weapon is useless if you don't know where to aim it, June replied. Or if the people you're fighting think of solutions you never considered. The class grew tense as the debate heated up. Even Professor Kang seemed surprised by the intensity. After class, Doya caught up with June in the hallway. That was brave, she said. Vraxians hate being challenged. I was just making a point, June said. Well, Tal didn't like it. Be careful, June. Vraxians don't forget when they think someone has disrespected them. That night, June couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the rising tensions, about Tal's strange behavior. He pulled out his Earth history books and began reading about ancient wars, about how smaller nations had survived against overwhelming odds. Just in case. The next morning, walking to class, June noticed more security drones in the hallways. There were fewer students around, and those he passed spoke in hushed voices. As he entered Professor Kang's classroom, the emergency announcement system suddenly activated. A soft, calm voice spoke. Attention all students and faculty. Due to ongoing diplomatic situations, security protocols have been elevated. All non-essential movement between sectors is restricted until further notice. Professor Kang looked grim as he started the lesson. Today we will discuss crisis management during conflict situations, he said. June glanced at Tal's seat. It was empty. So were the seats of all the other Vraxian students. The xenobiology class was halfway through when it happened. Professor Len, a tall alien with 6 eyes, was explaining the digestive systems of gas-based life forms. The holographic display showed a floating creature that looked like a purple cloud. June was taking notes when the classroom light suddenly turned red. A loud alarm began to sound, 3 sharp tones repeating over and over. What's happening? June asked Doya, who sat beside him. Before she could answer, the large screen at the front of the room switched from the lesson to an emergency broadcast. The image showed spaceships, hundreds of them. Warships with sharp angles and glowing weapons. They were firing on smaller ships and space stations. Attention all Academy students and staff, a calm voice announced over the speakers. The Galactic Academy is now under emergency lockdown. Please remain in your current locations. This is not a drill. Professor Len's 6 eyes all widened. Stay calm, everyone, he said, but his voice shook. The broadcast continued. We are receiving reports of Vraxian Imperial forces launching coordinated attacks across multiple Union systems. All Union defense forces are now at highest alert. June felt a cold feeling in his stomach. War. Actual war had just started. The classroom door slid open. Professor Kang rushed in, his face pale. Professor Len, I need to speak with you, he said, urgently. As the 2 professors spoke in hushed tones by the door, panic began to spread among the students. My family lives in the Proxima system, a small blue alien cried. That's where the Vraxians are attacking. They can't attack the Academy, another student said. We're a neutral learning center. We have students from both the Union and the... Empire here. Doya turned to June, her clear skin now clouded with fear. This doesn't make sense. The Academy is protected by Union treaties. Even during conflicts, schools are safe zones. Professor Kang returned to the front of the room. Students, listen carefully. The Academy's emergency shields have been activated. We are safe for now, but we need to move to the central shelter area. Just then, the building shook violently. The lights flickered. The emergency broadcast cut out, then returned with static. That wasn't supposed to happen, Professor Len said, his voice rising. The shields should prevent any impact. Professor Kang's face turned grim. Something is wrong with the defense systems. We need to... Another explosion rocked the building. This one much closer. Several students screamed. Part of the ceiling fell in the corner of the room. Everyone out, Professor Kang shouted. Move to the emergency exit. Stay together. As the students rushed toward the door, June noticed something strange. The security drones that normally floated in the hallways were spinning in circles, their lights flashing randomly. The drones are malfunctioning, he said to Doya. They joined the crowd moving through the hallways. Emergency lights pulsed along the floor, guiding them toward safety areas. Professors and security staff tried to maintain order, but fear was spreading. Suddenly, all the lights went out. The hallway plunged into darkness. After a few seconds, dim backup lights came on, casting eerie shadows. The main power is down, someone said. That's impossible. The Academy has 5 backup power systems. In the dim light, June saw a familiar figure moving against the flow of the crowd. Tal, the Vraxian student who had been missing from class. He was wearing some kind of armor now and holding what looked like a weapon. Doya, June whispered, pulling her behind a column. Look, Doya's eyes widened. Why does Tal have a weapon? Students aren't allowed to have weapons in the Academy. They watched as Tal met up with 3 other Vraxians at a junction in the hallway. All of them were armed. They seemed to be following a plan, moving with purpose. We need to tell Professor Kang, June said. They turned to go back, but the crowd had moved on. They were alone in this section of the hallway. Another explosion shook the building, closer this time. The floor beneath them trembled. June heard shouting coming from the direction the crowd had gone. Something's happening up ahead, Doya said, her voice trembling. They moved cautiously forward, staying close to the wall. As they rounded a corner, they saw chaos. Several Vraxian soldiers, not students but actual soldiers in full battle armor, were in the main hall. They had weapons pointed at a group of students and professors. Nobody move, one of the soldiers shouted. You are now under the protection of the Vraxian Empire. June pulled Doya back around the corner before they were seen. They're taking hostages, he whispered. This was planned. The Vraxians had people inside the Academy all along. But why? Doya asked. Why take over a school? June thought about the Academy's location, about its importance as a center of learning. The Academy has students from powerful families across the galaxy, children of diplomats, leaders, scientists, perfect hostages. Another group of Vraxian soldiers marched down a connecting hallway, led by none other than Tal. He looked different now, confident, dangerous. This wasn't a student anymore. This was a soldier who had been pretending to be a student. We need to hide, June whispered. Find somewhere safe until help comes. Help from where? Doya asked. If the Vraxians are attacking multiple systems, the Union forces will be spread thin. They backed away slowly, looking for a place to hide. The Academy was huge, with many small rooms and storage areas. They found a maintenance closet and slipped inside. Through a small window in the door, they could see more Vraxian soldiers moving through the halls. They were systematically checking rooms, gathering students and staff. They're going to find us eventually, Doya said. June tried to think. What would help them? The Academy systems were down or compromised. Communications would be blocked. The Vraxians seemed to be in control of the main areas already. We need to find Professor Kang, June decided. He might know what to do. Carefully, they left the closet and moved through back hallways, avoiding the main routes. They could hear shouting and sometimes screams in the distance. Once they froze as a group of Vraxian soldiers marched past the end of their hallway. They finally found Professor Kang in a small teaching room, surrounded by a group of younger students. He was trying to calm them down. When he saw June and Doya, relief washed over his face. "You're safe," he said. "I feared the worst when I couldn't find you in the evacuation group." "Professor, the Vraxians are taking everyone hostage," June explained quickly. "Tal and other Vraxian students are helping them. They had this planned." Professor Kang nodded grimly. "I suspected something when all the defense systems failed at once. They had inside help." "What do we do?" Doya asked. "The Union will send help," Professor Kang said. "But it might take time. The attacks are happening across multiple systems." Suddenly, they heard heavy footsteps in the hallway outside. Professor Kang quickly motioned for everyone to hide behind the desks. The door slid open. Tal stood there, flanked by 2 Vraxian soldiers. "Professor Kang," Tal said, his voice cold, "you are requested to join the other senior staff in the Central Command area." Professor Kang stood slowly. "These are children, Tal. Whatever your quarrel is with the Union, they are not part of it." "They are valuable assets," Tal replied. "The children of important people make excellent bargaining chips." One of the soldiers stepped forward and grabbed Professor Kang roughly by the arm. The professor winced in pain. "Leave him alone," a young student shouted, jumping up from hiding. Everything happened very fast. The soldier raised his weapon. Professor Kang pushed the young student aside. There was a flash of light and a strange buzzing sound. Professor Kang fell to the floor. "No!" Doya cried out. Tal turned sharply, noticing June and Doya for the first time. His yellow eyes narrowed. "The human," he said. "Of course you would be hiding. Bring them all." June rushed to Professor Kang's side. The professor was still breathing, but barely. His eyes fluttered open. "June," he whispered. "Take this." He pressed something small and hard into June's hand. "Academy override codes. Find a way." "Enough," Tal barked. "Bring them now." As the soldiers moved forward, June quickly slipped the small device into his pocket. He looked at Doya, then at the frightened younger students. This was no longer about being an exchange student. This was about survival. June crouched in a dark maintenance tunnel, his heart pounding. He had managed to escape during the confusion when more Vraxian soldiers arrived. The small device Professor Kang had given him was clutched tightly in his hand. In the dim emergency lighting, he could see it was a simple metal cylinder with a small screen. He heard footsteps and pressed himself against the wall. 2 Vraxian soldiers walked past the tunnel entrance, not noticing the small access door June had slipped through. "They've secured the east wing," one soldier said. "All the high-value hostages are in the central hall." "What about the human student the commander asked about?" the other asked. "Still missing, but he can't go far. We control all exit points." When they were gone, June let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Tal was looking for him specifically. But why? He was just one human exchange student. He looked at the device again and pressed the small button on its side. The screen lit up with a map of the academy. Small blinking dots showed the locations of Vraxian soldiers. They were everywhere in the main halls, but the maintenance tunnels were mostly clear. "Academy systems access granted," a soft voice said from the device. "Welcome, Professor Kang." June nearly dropped it in surprise. The device was linked to Academy systems that were still working. "Show me security camera feeds," June whispered to the device. The screen changed to show different areas of the Academy. June saw groups of students and teachers being held in the central hall. Guards stood at all exits. In another room, he saw Tal talking to a larger Vraxian in elaborate armor, probably a commander. He searched the feeds until he found what he was looking for. Doya and the group of younger students were being held in a classroom, guarded by 2 soldiers. He needed to help them first. Studying the map again, June plotted a route through the maintenance tunnels. As an exchange student, he had spent hours exploring the academy, fascinated by its design. Now that knowledge might save lives. The tunnels were tight and dusty. They hadn't been designed for people to move through. only for small repair drones. But June was slim enough to squeeze through. Occasionally, he had to stop and wait as Vraxian patrols passed by near tunnel openings. As he crawled, he remembered his Earth history classes. Guerrilla fighters had used tunnels and hidden passages during many wars on Earth, small forces defeating larger, better-equipped enemies by using the environment to their advantage. He reached an access panel near the classroom where Doya was held. Peering through a small vent, he could see 2 Vraxian guards outside the door. They looked bored, their weapons held loosely. June needed a distraction. He checked the device again, searching through Academy systems. Environmental controls, he whispered to the device. The screen showed options for lighting, temperature, and ventilation. An idea formed in June's mind. He selected the section where the guard stood and lowered the temperature to its minimum setting. Then he turned the ventilation to maximum. Nothing seemed to happen at first. Then gradually the Vraxian guards began to shift uncomfortably. Their scales started to lose color, turning from green to a pale blue-gray. June remembered from xenobiology class. Vraxians were cold-blooded. They needed warmth to function properly. Now they were standing in an increasingly cold hallway with cold air blasting on them. "Something's wrong with the climate system," one guard said, his voice shivering. "Check it out," the other said. "I'll stay with the prisoners." Perfect. Now he only needed to deal with one guard. But how? He had no weapons. June moved to another access panel further down the hall. When the first guard walked past, searching for the climate controls, June waited for the right moment, then popped open the panel and tumbled out, crashing directly into the guard. The surprised Vraxian stumbled, slowed by the cold. June grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and sprayed it directly into the Vraxian's face. The guard roared in pain as the cold foam covered his eyes. June brought the extinguisher down hard on the Vraxian's head. The guard collapsed to the floor, unconscious but alive. Quickly, June dragged the guard into the maintenance tunnel and took his weapon, a long metal rod that hummed with energy. He had seen similar weapons in Academy security demonstrations. They could stun or incapacitate with different settings. Now for the second guard. Using the device, June turned off all the lights in the hallway. Complete darkness fell. "What's happening?" the remaining guard shouted, raising his weapon. June moved silently through the darkness, remembering another lesson from human history. The element of surprise was often more powerful than superior weaponry. He pressed a button on the stunner and swung it hard at where he knew the guard was standing. There was a flash of blue light, a grunt of pain, and the sound of a heavy body falling. June turned the lights back on. The Vraxian lay motionless on the floor. He ran to the classroom door and used the device to unlock it. Inside, Doya and 7U. Younger students looked up in shock. "June," Doya exclaimed. "How did you—" "No time," June said. "We need to move quickly. The Vraxians control most of the academy, but they don't know the maintenance tunnels like I do." "Where are we going?" a small, 4-armed student asked. "Somewhere safe," June promised. "And then we're going to help the others." June led the group through the maintenance tunnels to a small storage room deep in the academy's lower levels. According to the device, no Vraxians had found this area yet. "We'll be safe here for now," June said, closing and locking the door behind them. "What's happening?" Doya asked. "Why are the Vraxians doing this?" June showed her the device. They planned this attack carefully. They had students like Tal here as spies for months, learning the Academy's systems. They've taken over because the Academy has important hostages, children, of leaders and diplomats from across the galaxy. "What about Professor Kang?" one of the younger students asked. June's face fell. "I don't know. He was hurt badly when he gave me this device." "So what do we do now?" Doya asked. "Wait for rescue?" June shook his head. "From what I heard, the Vraxians are attacking multiple systems. Help might take days to reach us." "But we're just students," Doya said. "What can we do against soldiers?" June thought about his history classes again, about how Earth's past was filled with stories of ordinary people standing up against powerful forces. "We don't need to defeat them. he said. We just need to disrupt their plans and help free the hostages. The Vraxians rely too much on their technology and protocols. They expect everyone to follow predictable patterns. But humans don't, Doya said, understanding dawning on her face. Exactly, June smiled. They think I'm just a primitive human, but that's their mistake. Humans are good at improvising, at finding unexpected solutions. He started examining the storage room. It contained cleaning supplies, tools for the maintenance drones, and various chemicals for the Academy's environmental systems. Doya, you studied chemistry, right? June asked. Yes, she said. Why? June picked up a container of cleaning fluid. Because we're going to make some surprises for our Vraxian friends. Over the next few hours, June and Doya worked together, mixing chemicals to create smoke bombs and flash devices. The younger students helped by gathering materials from nearby storage rooms, moving carefully through the maintenance tunnels. Using the device, June monitored Vraxian movements and planned their strategy. He discovered that the Vraxians were having trouble with the Academy's complex environmental systems. They kept the hostages in areas they could easily control, but they didn't understand how the Academy's automated systems worked. They've shut down most of the Academy systems because they can't control them, June told the others. They're using their own equipment instead. That's good for us. Why? Doya asked. Because they expect an attack from outside, from Union forces. They're not prepared for problems from inside. June smiled. And they definitely don't expect a human exchange student to cause those problems. As their supplies grew, so did June's plan. The Vraxians had superior weapons and numbers, but they didn't know the Academy like he did. They didn't understand how creative humans could be when cornered. I think we're ready, June finally said, looking at their collection of makeshift devices. It's time to show the Vraxians that technology isn't everything. Sometimes the old simple ways work best. Doya looked nervous but determined. What's the plan? First we free more students, then we take back the communication center and call for help. June picked up one of their homemade smoke bombs. And we're going to use the oldest human battle strategy there is. What's that? One of the younger students asked. June smiled grimly. Chaos. Smoke filled the eastern corridor of the Academy. Alarms blared as the Vraxian soldiers ran toward the source of the disturbance. 3 of June's homemade smoke bombs had gone off at once, creating thick clouds that stung the eyes and made breathing difficult. The human? The Vraxian commander demanded, his scaled face twisted in anger. It must be, Tal replied. No one else would use such primitive methods. In the confusion, no one noticed June and Doya slipping through a maintenance tunnel on the opposite side of the Academy. They had left the younger students in the safe room and were now putting the next phase of their plan into action. The communications center is just ahead, June whispered, checking the device Professor Kang had given him. 2 guards outside, 3 inside. Doya looked nervous. Are you sure this will work? No, June admitted. But it's the best chance we have. They reached a junction where a small vent overlooked the hallway leading to the communications center. 2 Vraxian guards stood at attention, their weapons ready. June carefully placed a small container in the vent. Inside was a mixture of chemicals from the cleaning supplies that would create a loud bang and bright flash when combined. A simple flashbang device. Cover your ears and close your eyes, he told Doya. June pressed a button on the device, activating the Academy's sprinkler system in just that section of hallway. Water rained down on the surprised guards. When the water hit the container, the chemicals mixed. Bang! A flash of light and a deafening sound filled the hallway. The guards, already disoriented by the sudden water, were completely stunned. June pushed open the vent and dropped down into the hallway, wielding the stun rod he had taken earlier. 2 quick strikes and both guards were unconscious. Now for the hard part, he said as Doya joined him. They approached the door to the communication center. Using Professor Kang's device, June accessed the room's environmental controls. He turned the oxygen level down to the minimum safe amount. Vraxians need more oxygen than humans or Artaxians, he explained to Doya. They'll start getting sleepy and slow. Sure enough, when they peered through the small window in the door a few minutes later, the Vraxian soldiers inside were yawning and struggling to stay alert. "Time for another distraction," June said. He used the device to trigger alarms in a distant part of the academy. Two of the Vraxians rushed out to investigate, passing June and Doya, who were hidden in a nearby alcove. Now there was only one guard left in the communications center. "Ready?" June asked. Doya nodded. They burst into the room. The remaining guard, slow from the reduced oxygen, barely had time to raise his weapon before Doya hit him with another homemade flashbang. June followed with the stun rod, and the Vraxian collapsed. "We did it," Doya said in amazement. "Not yet," June replied, moving quickly to the communications console. "We still need to call for help." The system was locked with Vraxian security codes. But June had studied Earth's computer history, including old hacking techniques that most advanced civilizations had forgotten about. Sometimes the simplest approaches worked best against complex systems. He connected Professor Kang's device to the console. "Let's see if this works." To his relief, the Academy override codes began bypassing the Vraxian locks. Slowly, the communication system came back online. "Union Emergency Channel," the system announced. "Transmitting." "This is Galactic Academy on Helios," June said clearly. "The Academy has been taken over by Vraxian forces. They are holding students and faculty hostage. We need immediate assistance." A crackling voice responded. "This is Union Defense Vessel. Horizon. Message received. All available units are engaged across multiple systems. Estimated arrival time, 6 hours." June's heart sank. 6 hours was too long. The Vraxians would find them long before then. "We need to free the other students," June decided, "and find Professor Kang." Using the Academy's security feeds, they located where most of the hostages were being held, the Central Hall. They also found Professor Kang, who was alive but injured, being kept with other senior staff in a separate room. "We can't fight all the Vraxians," Doya said, looking at the number of soldiers on the screen. "We don't need to," June replied. "We just need to disrupt their plan long enough for help to arrive." He studied the Academy systems on the device. An idea formed in his mind, risky but possible. The Vraxians are using their own technology to control the Academy, right? They shut down the Academy systems they couldn't control. "Yes," Doya said, "but they kept life support and basic functions running." "What if we turned everything back on, all at once?" Over the next hour, June worked with Doya to create chaos across the Academy. They activated cleaning drones, programmed to swarm areas where Vraxians were stationed. They turned heating systems to maximum in some areas, and cooling systems to minimum in others, using the Vraxians' cold-blooded nature against them. They released more smoke bombs through the ventilation system and triggered emergency protocols that caused doors to open and close randomly throughout the building. The Vraxians were thrown into confusion. Their orderly occupation turned into a scramble to maintain control. Using the confusion, June and Doya freed more students from smaller holding areas. Their group grew as they moved through the academy using the maintenance tunnels. Soon they had 20 students from various species, all eager to help. "The Vraxians have called for reinforcements," June said, checking the communications they were now monitoring. "We need to act quickly." They divided into smaller groups, each with specific tasks to create more disruptions. Some planted the remaining homemade devices in strategic locations. Others worked to free more hostages from lightly guarded areas. June and Doya headed for the room where Professor Kang was being held. As they approached, they saw 2 guards outside the door. These were elite soldiers, more alert than the others they had encountered. "We need something bigger this time," June whispered. He checked his device and smiled when he found what he was looking for: access to the Academy's teaching simulations. Every classroom had holographic projectors for lessons about different species and environments. June activated the projector in the hallway near the guards and selected a program: Apex Predators of the Galaxy. Suddenly, the hallway was filled with a lifelike hologram of a Narian beast, a massive predator with 4 rows of teeth and claws like swords. It roared and charged directly at the guards. The Vraxians knew it wasn't real, but their instincts kicked in. They flinched and raised their weapons, firing at the hologram that passed harmlessly through them. In that moment of distraction, June and Doya attacked from behind with stun rods. After a brief struggle, both guards were unconscious. They rushed into the room and found Professor Kang lying on a medical bed, his chest wrapped in bandages. Several other teachers looked up in surprise. "June?" Professor Kang said weakly. "How did you—" "No time to explain, Professor. We need to move you somewhere safe. Union forces are coming, but not for several hours." As they helped Professor Kang to his feet, an alarm blared throughout the academy. A voice came over the speakers. "Security breach at Central Command, all units respond." "That's not good," June said. "They know what we're doing." They hurried through the halls, supporting Professor Kang between them. They needed to reach the maintenance tunnels before more soldiers arrived. Just as they rounded a corner, they came face to face with Tal and two Vraxian soldiers. "The human," Tal snarled. "I should have killed you when you first arrived." June pushed Professor Kang and Doya back around the corner as the Vraxians raised their weapons. "Go," he shouted. "I'll hold them off." "June, no," Doya cried, but June had already turned to face Tal. He had one last trick. He used the device to activate the fire suppression system. Foam sprayed from the ceiling, covering everything. In the confusion, June charged forward, tackling Tal to the ground. They rolled across the foam-covered floor, struggling for control. "Your primitive tactics won't save you," Tal growled. "Being primitive isn't always a bad thing," June replied, landing a solid punch to Tal's face. Tal threw June off, sending him sliding across the slippery floor. As June tried to stand, Tal aimed his weapon. "Your species was assessed as non-threatening," Tal said in disbelief. "We analyzed all your technology, your military capabilities." "You analyzed our tools, not our minds," June replied. "Humanity survived thousands of years of our own wars. We know how to think like warriors even when we choose peace." Suddenly the walls around them shook. A new, deeper alarm sounded. "Union ships detected," the Academy system announced. "Multiple vessels entering orbit." Tal looked up in shock. "Impossible. They couldn't respond so quickly." June smiled. "You should have studied Earth history more carefully. Rule number 1. Humans are very good at surviving until help arrives." The ceiling above them exploded inward as Union soldiers in battle armor descended on cables. Their weapons were trained on Tal and his soldiers. "Drop your weapons," the Union commander ordered. The battle for the Academy was over. Hours later, as Union forces secured the building and treated the wounded, June sat beside Professor Kang's bed in the medical center. "You did well, June," the professor said. "Better than I could have imagined." "I just did what humans have always done," June replied. "Adapt and survive." Professor Kang smiled. "And that is why I wanted a human in the exchange program. The galaxy needs to